to another podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Episode number 3.
Number 3.
And 4 more to go after this. And we passed that mark where they say, like, you know, most podcasts don't make it past 7.
Oh, I did not know that little stat.
Before.
Well, I never worried about that.
I've heard it before, or I made it up, one or the other. That's our 2 options. No, I've heard that before. So, I mean, just think, I mean, there's many people just like almost start a podcast, and to an extent, it's fairly easy to start, but to keep on going, can you keep on going past that 7? Can you do it? I think we can do it.
I think we can do it. I would make a bet.
I would too. I would make a bet that we can do it. We're feeling good. Episode 3 in. It's another rainy day in Nashville.
I love the rain.
Oh, I love it too. Which makes me wake up, and then I'm like, oh, that's why I've been sleeping so solid and don't want to get out of bed, because the rain just makes me fall asleep. Especially if I hear it. Oh man, if I hear the rain coming down, it just knocks me out.
Good sound effect.
Knocks me out. Seth getting knocked out by the rain. Knocked out.
You ever think about a career in doing the sound effect? There are people that do that on the radio. Make all kinds of sound effects.
Yeah, there's some people that are just crazy with the bebop and all that. But there was a guy on an old movie from the 80s, maybe the 90s, the Police Academy. There was the black guy.
Right,
on there
I remember.
That
that guy was amazing.
He didn't.
Whatever.
Rather than talk, I think he just did sound effects.
I wonder whatever happened to him. You know? People from our past. You know?
Then you go way back. You got the Marx Brothers. That he didn't really make noises because he was supposedly deaf on the comedy show. You had the Marx Brothers. There's like even 4 or 5 of them, and the one just made noises, but with horns. He would communicate how he was feeling with his facial expressions. He had curly big hair, not unlike mine, but he would communicate through the horns. Did you ever watch old Marx Brothers movies?
I can't say that I have. Old, no,
but yeah, very. But yeah, you didn't watch much movies or stuff growing up, did you?
No, we didn't have a TV.
Usually, you didn't have TV.
In fact, we didn't have TV my sister, my younger sister, told me recently, when my father decided it was okay to have a TV, it was my freshman year in college. After I had left, he decided that he was going to get a TV.
Spoil his girls.
Yeah, spoil his youngest. You know, they say the youngest always gets spoiled.
But, yeah, there's quite an age gap too.
And so, yeah, 7 years between me and my younger sister. Anyway.
Only 7 years? Oh, wow.
7
years. It was more than that.
Yeah, because he wanted to watch a Christian Christmas special on TV. Lowell Lundstrom from the Dakotas. You probably don't know Lowell, but Lowell Lundstrom was iconic. Was a local traveling evangelist. His entire band, they played music, they put out records, and wrote music and put it out. And they came to our church a number of times. And then he had crusades, TV shows. I mean, he was a big deal in the upper Midwest.
Yeah,
I think. And then he even was president, whatever who's the name of the top person at Trinity Bible College, the chancellor or whatever, the top person, the president. Yeah, he was in charge of one of the Assemblies of God Bible colleges, the one in North Dakota. Most people don't know, tiny little Bible college in North Dakota, in Trinity, North Dakota, called Trinity Bible College, I think, TBC. My sister went there. That's where I met her husband. That's where she met her husband.
Yeah, Grandpa never watched a lot of TV. I don't think he ever really got the point of movies. I don't think he ever really liked movies. He liked some shows. He liked sitcoms. He liked Wheel of Fortune. Loved Wheel of Fortune.
In his later years, yes.
Yeah. So
after Mom died.
Yeah.
Or even, I think he started watching it even when Mom was still alive. He started like the Wheel of Fortune. And so that was a thing that, I mean, the whole family, well, I don't know if your mom and dad did, but I know my sister and her husband would watch it and then call him afterwards. And I used to, after Mom died, I'd go see him at least once a week and cook him something, because he didn't know he couldn't even boil water. Not that I'm any kind of great cook, but I cook better than he could. So
he just microwaved everything.
And so I would always go in time for Wheel of Fortune, watch Wheel of Fortune with him, and then cook something to eat, something simple, hamburgers, sloppy joes, something easy.
I still love me some sloppy joes.
Yeah, sloppy joes are so good.
I love sloppy joes.
So good.
I'll crave them every once in a while and make them. It's the simplest thing to make.
Simplest thing to make.
Cook some ground beef and throw some sauce in there.
Yeah.
And then I got to put cheddar cheese, let the cheddar cheese melt on the meat in the buns. Oh my gosh. You want some sloppy joes tonight? Goodness. Nowadays, you don't have to go to the store. You can just get on your app and
where would you get sloppy joes if you wanted them delivered to you and didn't want to make them? Is there any place that makes them?
That's a question. That's a good question. There's probably a place out there. I mean, that's the thing about the apps. You could just type it
Sonic. Sonic kind of. I know you were a big fan of Sonic. I remember when you were in high school, we hung out.
I worked at Sonic.
Oh, you worked at Sonic.
I worked at Sonic. Yeah. But yeah, that was the spot too. Well,
that would be the kind of place that would have a sloppy joe.
I think I even mentioned that. Did I mention that last podcast? It was that was part of the cruise spot. People would just stay bumper to bumper around the Sonic and then the rest of the block. And they did that for years until they finally shut it down just because it was a little bit of a traffic issue. They should just let us go. They ended up just moving it down to downtown area, which that
Hot Springs, Arkansas.
Yeah, it was. We call it drag or whatever. I forgot there was a term.
Yeah, every town. I mean, I don't know if they still do, but yeah, people you drive up and down. I mean, high school kids got nothing better to do but go up and down the blowing gasoline.
Kids would drive into town from like 30 that lived 30
just
miles
to go
out
up and
of town.
down the thing. Yeah,
would drive into town
a rite of passage in American love affair with vehicles. I don't know if that's still the case. I mean, but still, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, if you have if there's some spots that people still hang out, maybe there's an old, I don't know, like there's like good hangout spots. Like, I mean, like an old, you think about, every Friday we always went to this old ice cream parlor place. I got the same thing every time, an Oreo shake every Friday. And they even opened a Sonic next to this ice cream place. I was like, oh, it was going to go out of business. Nope. It had too much of a cult following like that ice cream place did. It still is today open next to the Sonic.
Wow.
But yeah, yeah, hit us up on Instagram and leave us a message if you still have a spot where people like just kind of like,
yeah, let us know. We'll talk about it. We'll mention it in our next podcast.
Do you still have a mall? Do you still have a mall that you hang out, that everybody comes and hangs out at? Is there a drag? I guess, yeah, you could call it the drag or something. Drag isn't the right term.
I think it is the drag.
Maybe it is a drag.
Go up and down and make the road. It was, everyone knew what it was. You would start at one point and go up the road and then turn around at a certain point and come back and just drive up and down that road and see who else was out there. And you knew you knew all the car, you knew everybody else's car.
Everybody's hanging out their door, yelling at people and hollering and stuff, and super chill. I mean, the Sonic's still open. Maybe you stop in grab yourself a drink or whatever. No, we're all underage, so you're probably not drinking unless you're really bad. So, but I was an angel, so not me. I was a precious angel. But I rarely ever did it. I mean, I did it probably a handful of times, but I don't remember doing it too awful much. But I mean, I guess I was working too. I was working some job or another, like from junior high year on. I got a job bagging groceries at Kroger.
Oh, was
my first job, and that was 10th or 11th grade. And I just worked all through school. In fact, my senior year, I left the last block. We had a block schedule, which I love that. It made school so much easier. You just had 2 blocks before lunch, 2 blocks after, and then you go home. It was like 3:05, and the last block I got like a permission thing to just be done with school. I was going to graduate and everything. And so I didn't have to work. I didn't have to be at school my last block my entire year. So I was leaving school at like 1:10, 1:11 every day of my senior year. So I was like,
going to Kroger.
I was going Kroger at first, and then I started another job where I got paid more. I was working for, I was doing like paperwork, or not paper. I was like making copies and stuff for a insurance company.
So office job.
Yeah, an office job. Yeah, that was my first legit probably about my only office job.
I started working a little sooner.
Oh yeah. You started working as soon as you could walk, probably.
Pretty much. I know that I was driving the tractor before I started first grade, and the reason I know this is that my aunt.
Before first grade.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. So what's that? 5-6 years old?
Yeah.
I mean, that's dangerous. I mean, I could be permanently maimed. Thank God I have my hands and I can play guitar.
Well, the funny part is you probably drove it better than probably most adults.
So yeah, and it was the norm. It wasn't abnormal.
Yeah,
that's what kids did on the farm. And that's people would have a lot of kids, so that
child labor wasn't a term back then.
Yeah, it wasn't. And the reason I know I was driving the tractor before we started first grade because we didn't have busing. The neighbor farmers would join together and take turns driving the kids to school. And so, 1 week I think there were like 4 families, whatever. So every 1 week out of the month, my dad would drive, and he would hate that because that would interrupt his working schedule. He had to come in from the field, and he would hate that. And and my aunt told me that I said to him when I started first grade, I don't remember, but she told me, so this is the marker how I know that I must have been driving a tractor. She said that I told my dad, you don't have to drive me to school. I'll drive the tractor. She thought it was so cute. So, I know I was driving it awfully early. And my dad used to have me drive the car to the local service station in the pickup to get the oil changed and get the lube job. And, they have to grease. I don't know if they still do that. They must not. You'd have to, put grease into the zerks on the front end and the different places. And so he would have me drive, and I literally was looking underneath the underneath the top steering wheel, just over the dashboard.
Well, so you had to lube up things more often or something? Like,
I get thinking about it. I mean, because Dad would change it on his own oil, but I guess you would have to put it on the lift, and for on tractors and stuff, he changed his own oil. So there must have been open zerks that you had to put grease in every so often. Like a lot of farm equipment would have zerks on them. You'd have to grease the joint. But apparently trucks did then too, because I'm just thinking about that now, because if it was just changing the oil, I know that dad would have done that himself, but there was more to it. You had to grease the zerks underneath the pickup truck, which is interesting now, come to think of it. And so I would always drive the truck to the local it was about 11 miles away. And apparently that was pretty rare, because they would always make comments about it when I'm coming in. Well, if we ever see a pickup driving and doesn't look like there's any driver, we know that's Tim. I could barely see over the dash. I mean, I'm like,
Well, the good part is, I mean, it's pretty hard to get lost in that area. You have nothing but like straight
everything
roads.
is straight. Yeah, everything is straight.
You probably had to take one turn to get where you were going.
Yes, you are accurate. Yeah. Well, go out the driveway, and then make a right, and then go 3/4 of a mile, make a left, and then 11 miles later, I was in town.
So you drove that into town for him sometimes.
Yeah, that was that was my job. And they would always make a comment, and I never understood why they would make so many comments about it. Here comes Tim. And I'm like, I wanted to be treated just like a grown adult. Hey, I'm working here.
I'm working, boy. I mean, would you say it's fairly lucky to an extent that Grandpa even let you finish high school and all that? Because, like, I mean, that was a common thing to pull your kids.
Deep weeds here. Yeah. He didn't, because he was butthurt. He got pulled out. Well, his dad was 50 years older than him, and his dad.
Oh my gosh, I forget about that.
So, because his first wife died, and so he
was part of the second batch.
So he was the part of the second batch, and so Grandpa was 50 when Dad was born, and Grandpa spoke German as a first language. So talk about a generation gap. I mean, when life expectancies wasn't that much, although Grandpa lived to be 99.
Yeah.
So he kind of, defeated or, exceptional in that longevity genes. We have longevity genes. Anyway,
he probably outlives some of his kids.
Yeah, I think he might. He may. I think he may have. Anyhow, so Grandpa, when Grandpa was in his 60s, and Dad was in 9th grade, and
which we should say his name, which is very fitting farmy name, Harold. That's his name,
my dad's
Harold.
name, yeah, Harold. His middle name was Amel.
Amel. I guess I didn't know
friends that knew him
Amel.
called him Harry Amel, and he hated that.
Oh my gosh, that's horrible.
He hated it.
I don't
Harry Amel.
Oh my gosh.
Some of them called him Harry. You know? Anyhow, so Grandpa made him stay home from school in 9th grade, and to my dad's dying day, he would complain about that. He hated
would
the
that
fact
be
that
the reason that he let you go?
My mom put her
partially?
foot down. My mom was pretty, traditional and didn't, pretty much Dad had the say. But she told me after I graduated high school, she said he wanted me to come out of school after 9th grade. He said, I didn't hurt me. I got out of school in 9th grade, and she put her foot down, is what she used to say. I put my foot down. That was her phrase of saying, I'm laying down the law here, and I wouldn't let him stop you from graduating high school. She told me this after I graduated. I didn't know about this internal battle between my parents.
Interesting. I mean, he definitely respected her and loved her, but he seems like he's definitely a person that would just do his own thing, though, too.
Very
but when
autocratic.
it came to the kids, though, that's
very
probably
autocratic. Yeah, he definitely,
Gosh, he missed Grandma when she passed away. She died. 2010.
What a love story. Yeah,
and he didn't pass away until 2017.
That's right. Yeah,
which I lost both.
He wanted to leave. He wanted to leave.
He was ready to go the minute
he was ready
gone.
to go. Exactly.
He had his ups and downs, which he made it sound like he was doing much worse when he talked to. So he had 3 kids, and I would come visit them, and he would talk. I won't say who it is but he would get on the phone with one of you guys, and we'd be laughing our butts off. You just having a good old time, and he'd answer the phone like this. Hello.
Yeah, he would turn into the depressed mode. Yeah, he'd go from laughing and having a blast to, he was all, he wasn't very self-aware about it. He would, my sister would call, and how you doing? I'm lonely. Well, yeah, understood.
But she could get out, and I mean, at any point he could have moved in with anybody and been out and about. I mean,
there's a lot of things
just loved
he could
the
have
farm.
involved.
He loved the farm.
He didn't take any responsibility for easing his loneliness. It was like he made us feel guilty for living our lives and not moving back home.
When he should be living his life.
He should be living his life. So anyway, he didn't have much social, experience. He spent all his life on the farm working 20 hours a day sometimes. I mean, the guy could survive in 4 hours of sleep. He could work harder than any man I've ever ran across or heard of. I mean, he could literally survive in 4 hours of sleep.
Still into his 60s, he was still doing light. Not
you
light.
were telling the story the other day. You were out helping him throwing posts, and he was in his 60s.
He was probably in his 60s.
And you were how old? You were like 20.
Yeah, I was in my 20s, and he was.
And you were like, you could not even come.
I couldn't keep up with him at all. He was throwing the posts in the back, like, I mean, I'm like
big wooden posts, not metal posts.
Big wooden posts, and from the time that it takes him about less than 5 seconds to pick it up and throw it in the back, probably 3 seconds. It's probably going to take me a good 10, 15 seconds at least, and I'm huffing and puffing, and I mean, I think I hurt my back. I mean, I didn't last out there a lot long. For one thing, it was pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, I remember when I moved, I had this, it's sitting back there. I mean, you can't see it. It's not on the camera, but it's a big TV entertainment unit. When you used to have big TV entertainment units back when there were CRT.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a really heavy cabinet. And I converted it into a storage unit. I've got shelves.
Oh, really? You still have
it's sitting right there. Yeah. The green one. Yeah.
I know you're talking about.
That bottom is very heavy.
Yeah.
When I moved it into my house, I had employees on the farm, and 2 young guys grabbed the bottom and brought it in. And so I let my lease up, and I bought a house And one day about 7 in the morning, my dad, and I was still kind of getting going. I think it was a Saturday morning, and Dad knocks on the door and he said, "Hey, let's get you moved so you don't." He was concerned that I wasn't get out in time so that I'd have to pay an extra month. And he said, "Let's get you moved." So, and we were moving that cabinet, and we go to move it, and I don't know, how old was he then? He might have been 70 years old, and we go to pick up this cabinet, and he goes to the bottom. And he leans it over and goes to pick it up, and I'm like, no. And he picks it up because two young guys had to carry it. It's so heavy. He picks it up like it's nothing. Okay, where are we going to put this? Because in his 70s, my eyes like, ah.
He had that old man strength.
Yeah.
Oh man, when I was I remember was it early in my 20s, maybe close to teens. We were messing around. I every once in a while I would get him to come play pool downstairs in the house. That was my main thing. I played a lot of pool downstairs. And we were goofing around one time, and we started wrestling, and he pinned me, and so he pinned me like I was a calf. And oh my gosh, I could not move. I remember telling you this years later, but I was like, if we had a picture of this or something, because like if the UFC could adopt this, you wouldn't be able to tap out very well, because I couldn't move my legs anywhere. I couldn't move my arms anywhere. He had my neck in a position. I was like,
and I'm guessing he's laughing the entire time.
He's laughing. I'm telling somebody, I'm not in any pain or nothing. I'm just saying, guys, somebody take a picture, because how is this that I cannot move? Every limb is in a different direction, and I cannot move one. I don't know how he did that, but he just put me in some calf move that he, when he's having to deal with the calves, and I could not move. I wasn't going nowhere. He's just laughing his butt off. Oh, yeah. He had a wonderful laugh. He was fun to make laugh. He was fun to make laugh too. He was a fun person to make laugh. Tim is too. You're a fun person. Usually we have to. Tim can't walk and laugh at the same time. There's got to be a little bit of a stopping, maybe leaning over, and then laughter. I haven't got one of those laughs from you in a while. I have to. But yeah.
All right. So, are you an NBA fan at all?
Oh yeah, you turned me more.
So the Olympics are coming up,
right? They've been struggling a little bit with these pre-games.
The U.S. team almost got beat by South Sudan, who doesn't have any NBA players.
Like, what's that?
And I was texting
they were just
Jimmy
coached by an ex-NBA player,
they were,
right? I think.
And they barely. LeBron had to hit a big shot to beat Germany. And Jimmy texted me, and I hadn't even thought about this. France is on their home. They're at home, and usually when you're at home, you get a boost. And they got They got Rudy Gobert.
Does somebody need to recruit some of these guys to play in the NBA? How are they beating these?
And Wemby is a 7'4" who moves like a guard. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was a rookie last year. He's French, and Rudy Gobert is also on the French team, all defensive guy. And we haven't even played them yet.
There is.
And they're at home. They're in France. We ain't winning the gold medal. We're prediction right now. The U.S. basketball team is not winning the gold medal.
Yeah, which this is something I was talking about the other day. One issue you have when you have a bunch of all-stars together, how well can they work together? I was like, nobody's worked together since probably the 90s, like back in the day with Jordan and all them. They have plenty of big heads. They have plenty of big heads, but nobody has big heads like the NBA players today.
Well, the rest of the world has caught up. The competitive leagues in Europe
Isn't that crazy?
are so competitive. In fact, what's the top European league when the Celtics, I'm a Celtics fan, when the Celtics won the NBA championship, and they're saying we're world champs, and the winner of the European championship said, wait a minute, we're in the world. Come play us. Beat us, then say you're world champs. But you're not world champs until you beat us. So they don't, although the ultimate for a player is to go to the NBA, but some of those, you can make more money playing in the European League. Actually, you can. Especially if you're a rookie. I think you can make more money playing the European League. You definitely can make more money
all it
playing in
takes
the
is
Chinese
one coach
League.
not liking you. You don't need play time. You can be a really good player. I mean, I think that was part of the issue with Lynn. Like he ended up around so many all-stars that he ended up just staying. Lynn. Jeremy Lin.
Oh, Jeremy Lin.
He got hurt by being surrounded by so many good players, and he was such a good player himself. But they'd end up just not even playing him. And he was just.
Is he still playing in China or somewhere?
Yeah, he was playing. He was doing really well in China. I think they even won a championship.
And you make good money. I think you make more. Yeah, I think you make more money playing in China than you do in the NBA. Well, not these big contracts. I mean, no. Jason Tatum just set the new record. It's $214 million over 5 years. I think
the situation has got to be right. You know, it's like what if you get some decent playing time, you're going to make really good money. Like well, I guess it depends. It depends, you know.
Depending if you're signing a veteran minimum contract, I think you can do better in some of the other leagues. So anyway, yeah, the Olympics start on this week. You were commenting, is it Thursday? You know?
Yeah, I think it's just after my birthday. I think it's the 26th.
Yeah, tomorrow's your birthday. Happy birthday. Early happy
tomorrow's
birthday.
my birthday. I'll be 23.
Yes.
Yes.
You don't look a day older.
Thank you. I think you're going to be 37 when is your birthday?
It's in November.
I'm so bad with birthdays.
36. You got it wrong.
30. You're going to be 36. 36. Okay. We're young kids here. Young kids. I'm been losing a little bit of weight. Hopefully keep
you
it
still
going.
under 300?
Yes.
Kudos.
I went back and forth a couple times there, and now I think I'm good. Eating these healthy meals.
Factor 75.
Yeah, it's just I'm looking forward to losing another 10. You know, I kind of just slowly put it on over time. You know, I mean, the biggest part probably was going from serving at a restaurant to doing Uber and doing like Uber where I was just sitting on my butt, like I just driving people around. Now for I'll do a little DoorDash or whatever, you know, but that gets me out of the vehicle. That's kind of nice, dropping people food off on, you know, going to pick up in the restaurant.
You should go back to serving. Think of all the people you'd meet.
Yeah, it is kind of hard to do to clock in once you're. I mean, that's why I like the DoorDash and that kind of stuff, just because I can work whenever I feel like it and not work whenever I feel like it. So that's
you're
when it comes
spoiled now.
Yeah. Oh, you're spoiled too, Tim. You're in the same boat I am. It's like, when's the last time you clocked in for a job?
Long time.
80s. That's probably the truth. No, maybe 90s. Maybe 90s. No, probably
95.
80s. 95. You remember? Oh, man.
In Japan. I worked in Japan. Yes. I taught English in Japan.
Oh.
Yes. I lived in Japan 2 years.
Clock in. Clock out.
Okay. Now we're on that subject. I can tell a story. So in Japan, and I love Japan. I haven't been back since 2008. I started an export business. I exported food grade soybeans to Japan, and grew from zero to multi-million-dollar business.
And not an easy job.
Not an easy job. So I was in Japan a lot. And my Japanese was pretty darn good, thank you. I negotiated 6-figure contracts with people that didn't speak English. Although my Japanese has fallen into disarray completely. I mean, can barely say hello.
Well, too, there's a bunch of dialects too, right? I mean,
well, I spoke business. You know, if you go to a bar and there people are a little intoxicated and they're also speaking slang, I can't understand them because they're not enunciating and they're speaking some slang. But in the business, people enunciate in a business setting. You know, they're very polite and professional in Japan.
Okay.
Anyway, so I have so many stories from Japan. I mean, and I would, practice my Japanese and I would call the company to make an appointment and I would enunciate and say who I was in Japanese and have this whole long spiel. I'm Tim Walter from Dakota Farms International, and I'm calling to speak to so-and-so. And it would always be they're like 50 years behind us with gender roles. And there'd always be an office lady, an OL office lady, a young, attractive woman with an attractive voice. That's the high-pitched voice. The Japanese girls always make their voice artificially higher. Are we doing well? Are we going?
I think the sound just started coming through my phone. Hopefully it's not loud enough to really be that noticeable. Check. See, it's just coming through my phone a little bit. I think we'll be okay. It might.
Anyway, so I would go through this whole spiel, my name's Tim Walter from my company Dakota Farms International, and I'm here to talk about non-GMO soybeans, and I want to speak to so and so. That's like a 1 minute spiel, and the OL office lady, young lady, office lady implies it's middle age, but no, it's a young lady, and I could hear her go, "Gaijin." Gaijin just means foreigner. So she would, after all that careful spiel, because she could tell that I wasn't speaking with a Japanese accent, and she would just say "Gaijin," because it was pretty rare to have someone who was not native Japanese speaker calling their office. So she didn't even bother to say who I was because they didn't have many Gaijins calling. Anyway, so I'm teaching English, and my boss is a young Japanese woman. And she was fine, but she didn't. I don't know. She didn't like me. All of the people teaching English were a native born in a native born country. A lot of Australians, New Zealanders, some from the UK, Americans. So if you were born in an English speaking country, you could get a job there. They give you a visa, working visa. That was your only requirement. A college degree. You had to have a college degree and be born in an English speaking country. So a lot of Aussies, a lot of Kiwis. Because that's kind of close to Japan. Some Americans, some from the UK. I don't think I ever ran across any Irish. Of course, you couldn't even. Do they even speak English anyway? They speak the Irish brogue. It's so hard to understand them, even though they're speaking English. Anyway, sorry to you.
All those redheads don't even have souls. So.
Anyway, so the trains are always on time on Japan. They always are on time, and it's. So to say that you're late to the office because the train is late, it doesn't fly because the train is never late. Well, one time I had a 30-minute commute, and one time I think somebody committed suicide. I mean, because it's quite common. Probably the train stoppage is when somebody jumps in front of a train. Suicide rate in Japan. I mean, it's sad. I'm not making light of it. Or an animal either an animal or a person got on the tracks, stopped the train, and so I was late. We sat on the tracks for about 15-20 minutes, and so when I was about 5 or 7 minutes late. I think we started at 10 and I walked in the door at 10 after 7, and she was fierce. Her face was red. She was so fierce that I was late because the students were already in the room waiting for their instructor. It's not professional, and it is so rare in Japan that if your train is late, they literally give you a permission slip that says the train was late. They give you a slip of paper from the Japanese railways that says, yes, it really is true. This time,
it really happened.
It really happened. The train was late. And she was furious with me, and I handed her the piece of paper, and her eyes got so big.
She'd never seen
one. I don't think she'd ever seen one. I literally don't think she'd ever seen one. She was shocked. And then she goes, oh, get in there. She didn't apologize, but that's how rare. I mean, that's how orderly Japan is.
You probably lost your job even like right then and there, maybe possibly.
She certainly was mad. I mean, maybe some demerits, or maybe after 3 strikes you're out. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't have a legitimate excuse. But that's one thing about Japan. And I love Japan. In fact, I was reading an article about Japan the other day, and I was thinking, man, maybe I should move back to Japan. I had these fleeting fantasies sometimes about things, and it would be fun to go back. The food is amazing, and all the public transportation works so well.
What was your favorite dish?
Sushi. Sushi,
yeah.
If I had a last dish, if I was condemned to die, I would have sushi. That would be my final meal if I could have it. But it's got to be not to be a sushi snob or anything, but what we have in America is really not sushi. Rolls are very rare in Japan, and that's what most Americans think sushi is. You go to a sushi shop in America and it's page after page of rolls. That's not really sushi.
Yeah, I would say, definitely in my experience being in China for a month, it's hard to replicate that experience, that the way the food tastes. because it's not in that environment. The food in China tastes so much different than any. Rarely do I come across a super authentic Chinese food, just because the environment that it's cooked, where where the ingredients is all coming from, is not the same as in the States. They're not. All the ingredients isn't coming over from China.
However, now they're like, when I work for the Japanese, how I got started with Japanese, I started working for the Japanese in New York City, and it was all a bunch of Japanese nationals that had come over. This is in the 90s before I moved to Japan, and they all would shop at Japanese supermarkets, and they had the actual legitimate products that were imported from Japan. They were more expensive.
That's cool.
But you literally, and there are Asian supermarkets where you can get the actual product, not an imitation, with the same brand and the same actual products. And so there's some restaurants that I've gone to. There's one not far from here.
Probably not a lot. Probably not a lot of places that are super authentic.
Probably not. But there is one place that it's actually run by some Koreans, and it's called Korean Japanese, which is quite typical. And it's called Midori's. It's not far from here. And boy, I love going there. It's a little place, and I love going in there because to me, it's about as close as I've gotten to some of the dishes, the Japanese dishes. And I went there last week. Remember when you went to the comedy show on Thursday night? That's where I went.
Oh, did you?
I went there, and
we'll have to go there sometime.
Yeah,
I love dumplings. If a place has good dumplings, I love dumplings. Just put in the sauce and let it just soak for a little bit.
Chinese than Japanese.
Is that more Chinese?
Oh, they have it in Japan. But I think it's a cuisine taken from China into Japan.
Like
China has an incredible influence on Japan. I mean, a lot of influence because China has been a powerhouse. I mean, 800 AD was when culture was more advanced in China, and they learned a lot from China. So there's a lot of influence from Chinese culture that has been adapted. I mean, they use the Chinese Chinese alphabet is they use the Chinese alphabet and they've adapted it to the Japanese language. So there's a lot of influence from China into Japan, but then they make it their own.
Man, there's so many fun facts in this podcast today. How are we doing? Still got a little bit of time. Excellent day. Yeah.
So yeah, and Japan. Oh man, I just so a great love for the Japanese people and the culture and
so clean over there. There's a
clean.
YouTuber that I watch, and he shows it just out and about. Living his life. Took forever for him to get. Well, it was during COVID too, so it was super hard to get. He was trying to get permission to move to Japan, and him and his wife live there, and they had a baby now. That's PewDiePie. He's the
yes,
and he'll do
from
do
Finland,
a home
right?
vlog.
No, Sweden.
Sweden. Yeah, and
one
so
of those Scandinavian countries.
Yeah, he'll do a vlog, and he does a really good job of just showing, showing what it's like in Japan, and it's beautiful. It is
the issue in Japan. As with many developed countries, including the U.S. to some extent, is the birth rate. So births per adult female is a demographic stat, and that is tracked. And in order to maintain level population, generally they say you needed 2.1 births per adult female. Why the 0.1? I don't know, but because one female's you need 2, right? But the 2.1 to maintain. And the birth rate in the U.S. actually has dropped substantially recently to around 2.5. I'm sorry, 1.5, 1.6, I believe. And most developed countries have it. Other countries are much lower. Italy is one. They're not having kids in Italy, and it's like a little over 1.1. But the lowest in Japan has a low rate as well. In fact, Japan population decreased now is decreasing, actually going down. And they also combine that with having the longest life expectancy of any country in the world. You got a rapidly aging workforce. No young people, and everybody's living for forever. So there's fewer and fewer young people take care of the older ones, and it's a big issue in Japan. And you could buy a house there. So on the eastern coast of Japan, which is from Osaka and Kobe and Osaka up north in Nagoya, and then up to Tokyo. That area, the eastern coastal area, is developed, but the rest of Japan, I mean, there's 4 big islands. That's just one island. And then the west of that, the western side, people are leaving those areas, and the towns are drying up. The amenities aren't there. And if you wanted to buy a house, you could buy a really nice house for really inexpensive, but you'd be living in the middle of nowhere, and amenities are starting to fall away because the population is declining. Now, Tokyo is still bustling. I mean, Tokyo is Tokyo. It's an international city. Everyone's moving there. But outside of that area,
so you could buy a place for fairly cheap, but how quickly how long would it take to get back into the town? How much of it?
Well, the rails still work.
Right,
even in the remote areas. You can still, I think
cool
they're keeping up the rails. I saw an article about a couple that bought a very traditional Japanese house, with the Japanese house got the tatami mats, on the floor, and the roof line with the very, very distinctive roof line and the rice paper walls,
right? Because you don't need a lot of insulation and stuff back there. Because I mean, you're kind of you're in the your temperatures are what?
Well, it
60,
kind of depends
70s,
which island. If you're in Hokkaido,
part?
which is the northern part, that gets a lot of snow.
Okay.
So north to south,
right.
Japan has a lot of variance, and the southernmost part is Okinawa, which really is almost not even a Japanese culture. I mean, it's a Pacific island, southern island that the Japanese conquered and kept after World War II. And so we have a big base there, and seems like the main thing that comes out of there, one of our young service people accosts a young Japanese person and rapes them or whatever. I mean, that's been the biggest one that's in the news. I haven't heard of the news recently, but there's the Okinawa people would love that if we would leave Okinawa. Anyway, that's a kind of a sore spot. But Okinawa, I've never been to Okinawa. I want to go, but that's way south. So from Okinawa to the northern part of Hokkaido, that's a big range from south to north. So, and then Kyushu and then Shikoku are the two. Honshu. Well, so you got 4 main islands. The northern one is Hokkaido, and that's a lot of snow. And then Honshu is the main one, which is where Tokyo and Kobe and Nagoya, where Toyota's from, is Nagoya, all on the eastern side of that. And then south, you got Shikoku, which is a small little island, and then Kyushu is even further south. So the temperature in Kyushu is very, very warm compared. So from Kyushu to Hokkaido is quite a big difference.
Sounds like you just named a bunch of new Pokemon.
Well, Pokemon comes from Japan, I love Japan. Yeah, Japan is such deep culture, so many.
Well, I think after this podcast, there's going to be a number of people wanting to check out Japan themselves. But I think that's about it. We're about out of time. Don't want to lose you guys, and
thank you so much for joining us.
Talked a little bit about everything. You know a little bit about us now. Tell us a little bit about you. Well, because in the future we'd like to do call-ins and learn and get some interaction with people or something, or even do we could do even a voicemail and listen to people's voicemails.
We should. We need to move towards that.
Cool. But we're just going to start. This is just our 3rd podcast, guys. Thanks for listening.
Yes.
And we will see you next time. Love you guys. Bye.